like you step on the dog's tail. It yelps, bolts to the corner, stares at you like you've betrayed it, and then 2 minutes later, it's back, leaning into the same leg that just hurt it, tail going, the whole thing apparently forgotten. So what just happened in there? Did your dog forgive you, or did it simply forget? Because forgiveness feels like one of the most human things we do, to be wronged, to hold on to it, and then to make the deliberate choice to let it go. The question is whether any animal is actually capable of that. And the answer turns out to sit right on the line between something beautiful and something a little unsettling. It starts in a zoo in the Netherlands. In the 1970s, a young primatologist named Frans de Waal was watching the chimpanzees at Arnhem Zoo, and he noticed something nobody had formally described before. After two chimps had a vicious fight, screaming, chasing, sometimes drawing blood, they didn't just separate and avoid each other. Often within minutes, the very same two would come back together. They'd kiss, they'd embrace. One would hold out an open hand and the other would take it. In 1979, de Waal published what he saw and gave it a name that sounded almost too human for science at the time: reconciliation. It turned out not to be a chimp quirk. Since then, reconciliation has been documented in more than 25 species of primates and beyond. Bonobos, macaques, baboons, even some monkeys reconcile after as many as half of all their conflicts. These animals weren't just forgetting their fights, they were actively repairing them. And de Waal saw something else in that same colony. After a fight, a bystander, a chimp who hadn't even been involved, would often walk over to the loser and put an arm around it, hold it, groom it. He called this one consolation, and it pointed at something deeper than relationship repair. To comfort a victim, an animal has to notice another's distress and be moved to ease it. That's not strategy. That's the raw emotional equipment that forgiveness is built on top of. So the obvious question is why? Why make up at all? And the answer de Waal landed on is the part that should make you sit forward. He called it the valuable relationships hypothesis. Animals don't reconcile randomly, and they don't reconcile with everyone. They reconcile most with the individuals they most need, their allies, their grooming partners, the ones they depend on to survive. Reconciliation isn't sentimentality. It's repair work on the bonds that matter most, and it works. After two animals make up, their stress hormones drop and they go back to tolerating each other's presence, as if the slate really has been reset. Now here's where it stops being a story about animals. Years later, researchers took de Waal's hypothesis about chimps and tested it on humans, and they found the exact same rule running underneath our forgiveness. People forgive more, and they forgive faster when they value the relationship with the person who hurt them. The machinery that makes you forgive a close friend but stay cold toward a stranger who did the same thing, that's the same machinery a chimpanzee uses to decide who's worth making up with. Which means forgiveness, or at least the engine beneath it, may be far, far older than our species. We didn't invent it, we inherited it. Think about how that plays out in your own life. A stranger cuts you off in traffic and you'll stew about it for an hour. The person you love most can hurt you far worse, and by bedtime, you've found your way back to them. That isn't a contradiction or a weakness. It's the valuable relationships hypothesis running quietly inside you. The same ancient calculation a chimp makes in the minutes after a fight. Repair what you can't afford to lose and let the rest go. The closer and more necessary the bond, the harder your mind works to mend it. But before you decide your dog is a tiny philosopher of mercy, here's the hard turn. Reconciliation is not the same thing as forgiveness. Not quite. Forgiveness, the way humans mean it, requires something extra and heavy. It requires holding a judgment. You wronged me, you are guilty of something, and then choosing to set that judgment down. The chimp kissing its rival might be doing none of that. It might simply be fixing a useful relationship with no verdict, no blame, nothing to pardon. Repair without judgment. And that's a very different thing from what you do when you forgive someone. It gets more complicated because not every animal lets go. Crows do the opposite, and they're terrifyingly good at it. A researcher named John Marsluff at the University of Washington once trapped a few crows while wearing a particular rubber mask. He didn't hurt them. He just briefly held them and let them go. But those crows remembered that face. For years afterward, anytime someone walked the campus wearing that mask, the crows would erupt, scolding and dive bombing. They taught their offspring to hate it too, birds that had never been trapped at all. By the time the experiment passed the 17-year mark, the grudge had been passed down through generations of crows who had only inherited the hatred, never earned it. So animals are absolutely capable of holding on to a wrong. Some hold it for the better part of 2 decades. And that actually sharpens our question, because if an animal can choose to keep a grudge, then an animal that comes back and repairs instead is starting to look like it's making a real choice. Even your dog complicates the picture. Wolves, who depend completely on their pack to survive, are strong reconcilers. They make up after fights because the team can't afford to fracture. But when researchers studied domestic dogs, they found something stranger. Dogs often didn't reconcile at all. After a squabble, they'd simply avoid each other, perhaps because dogs, unlike wolves, don't truly depend on one another anymore. So the science is still openly arguing about whether the animal in your living room forgives, reconciles, or just walks away. Which leaves the deepest possibility of all. Maybe most animals do something we've made far too complicated. They don't carry the wrong the way we do. Your dog doesn't lie in its bed replaying the moment you stepped on it. It doesn't build a case against you, doesn't rehearse the injury, doesn't let it harden overnight into resentment. And without all of that, the rumination, the blame, the story we tell ourselves about who hurt us and why, there may be nothing left to forgive. The slate didn't get wiped clean. It was simply never written on in the first place. So when your dog comes back and presses against the leg that hurt it, it may not be forgiving you at all. It may be doing something quieter and honestly harder than forgiveness. It never held the grudge to begin with. We treat forgiveness as one of our highest moral achievements, the long, painful work of putting a grudge down. And maybe it is, for us, because we're the animal that can't stop picking it back up. The creature at your feet didn't master forgiveness. It did something we may never manage. It just never started keeping score.